Michael Wilds, former federal prosecutor and immigration attorney who once represented Melania Trump, the First Lady. Michael, your thought on this ruling tonight?
The president, albeit well-intended, obviously chose an ineffective and an unconstitutional manner to protect us. Again, I take him at his word, and we all want to be safer. I'm actually a second-generation immigration lawyer. My father took on the Nixon administration when he represented John Lennon back in the day in the 70s. You know, the greatest part of this decision to an immigration lawyer, and I'm a professor in a law school also, is the standing issue. When you deny lecturers from coming to America, it has an impact on free speech. When you meddle in families, it has an impact because you have a right to marry. When you start immersing yourself and stopping business visas, I have titans of industry, Sephardic Jews born in Iran that cannot go back to their business where they employ thousands upon thousands of Americans. You're now stymieing international commerce. We have to rid ourselves of these modern-day pirates. But we can't throw out the good water here. The unconstitutional nature of this is so critical. So listen, the president is audacious and he says he's going to court. God bless the separation of powers. The biggest disappointment, Greta, United States Congress. Whether it's comprehensive or not, if they're allergic to the term or they don't know how to get it done, a vacuum has been created by their deafening silence. And the courts are now dealing with national security. How ridiculous is that?
Well, the decision is quite a lengthy one coming out of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, 3-0. We don't know who wrote the decision because it's what's called per curiam, which means it's basically a secret who wrote it. They all agreed upon it. One thing, Alan, and looking at it, everyone agrees the rollout was bad. It was, there was no question about it. And the issue wasn't before the Court of Appeals, to remind everybody, it wasn't whether the actual travel ban was constitutional or not, or what it was. The issue was whether or not the trial court, when he put that ban on hold, whether that hold should stay. But in reading the decision, what the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals says, we must consider several factors, including whether the government has shown that it's likely to succeed on the merits of its appeals, which means that they are sending a message to the President of the United States that he's not going to win if he comes back up there on the constitutionality, right?
I think that's right. If the same panel sits and if it doesn't go in bank, remember there are 29 judges on the United States Court of Appeals, more liberals than conservatives, more Democrats than Republicans. The Supreme Court is evenly split. Look, this is really a teachable moment. You know, we're the only country in the world that has a judicial branch that is equal to the president. And I think President Trump doesn't understand that the courts have as much power as he has, and the legislature has as much power as he has. And here we have an example of just a handful of judges stopping an order from coming into effect. And that's a very, very important teachable moment for us. Even if we end up in great conflict with a lot of noise, we have to use this as a teachable moment, and I think we can learn a lot from it. I would hope that Donald Trump is capable of learning and reading the opinion and understanding how complex this issue is and how much of a better job he and his Justice Department could have done, and they still can do it. They can help America by still going back, rescinding this order, and coming up with a new one that's more balanced and more likely to survive constitutional attack.
Well, I've just been handed the statement by the winning Attorney General from the state of Washington. It was Washington and Minnesota that had joined together, and we'll see, I'll read it to all of you. We'll read it together. Inslee's statement on Ninth Circuit decision upholding temporary restraining order. Here's the statement. Today's decision to uphold Judge Robart's order is a victory for Washington State and indeed the entire country. Thank you to Attorney General Ferguson and Solicitor General Noah Purcell for their diligent work on behalf of our state. The decision underscores the serious constitutional issues with President Trump's executive order and emphasizes what Attorney General Ferguson has said throughout this case, that no one is above the law, not even the president. Since the restraining order was issued in our state, we've seen a Somali man reunite with his wife, an American citizen, an Iraqi global health leader able to rejoin his colleagues at the University of Washington, and a graduate student studying HIV vaccines to return to continue his important work. I'm proud that Washington is a natural leader in this fight. We were the first state to stand against this executive order, but all Americans need to be willing to stand and fight for our democracy everywhere, every time, in every way it is threatened. George.
Well, he puts this in the largest context of a great argument that goes back to Alexander Hamilton in Federalist 70 saying, really the judicial branch is the least dangerous branch. Don't worry about it. Well, I don't think in the Trump White House tonight they think it's the least dangerous branch, and they don't think it's a branch without power. It is, as Professor Dershowitz said, a co-equal branch. And it really does help not to go to war one branch against the other. They should be rivals, but they should be respectful.
Michael?
There's a lot more heading our way, Greta. The Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, the DACA legislation, something that held truthfully out of the Lennon case. Prosecutorial discretion is going to be before this court. We cannot be exploiting the fear and the xenophobia post 9/11 with so much at stake. There are 820,000 students, but for the grace, young people, but for the grace of their parents and God that were brought in, and the Supreme Court has not ruled on that. Is this president going to continue it? So the more adversarial the different branches take to one another, there's a lot more coming to the president's desk.
I think though, Michael, I mean, look, I mean, it's like, everyone's pitted against everybody, and everyone rolls out the most